Going on? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Roast, Ron. We're back for another week.
We are back at it after another week of open practices. Tons to get into about Ohio State. Anything happen over the weekend with our ops? I see Connor Stallion's hard drive in the chat, so got to be a lot of information from this weekend, man.
Yeah, heard some breaking stuff. There's finally some confirmational things we knew last year, but I'm glad they confirmed some things.
They cheated!
That was indeed Connor Stallions in some other school's gear on the sideline, so they say.
Yeah, man. It's kind of reassuring to know that like we all weren't losing our minds, and like I was starting to believe the Michigan fans. They had been telling us for months they're gonna get away with this. Nothing happened. That wasn't Connor Stallions. Come to find out, it's almost hammer time. It sounds like the hammer's getting ready to drop on Michigan. Notice of allegation leaks to ESPN. Ryan Day's brother can't keep getting away with this. Apparently, he's the one behind all of these leaks. You see Michigan fans crying about how every time there's some sort of NCAA punishment, it's leaking through ESPN. You just saw Kentucky just recently agree to a settlement with the NCAA, and we never even knew that they were under investigation. So, I mean, maybe they do kind of have a point that it's kind of odd that we know every bit of what's going on with the Michigan investigation anytime ESPN can get their hands on it, and then it's like, Kentucky, man, we don't care.
Y'all will be fine. Well, shout out to Connor Stallion's hard drive for again tuning in early, man. You're still on your game. Don't worry. But yeah, man. So today I want to talk some camp things. So I have some camp standouts. We got some news. I pretty much scoured the beat. Everybody had something to say about camp. I want to give a huge shout out to our guy Dan. He was at practice tweeting out a lot. So I was on your Twitter timeline, Dan. So shout out to you. I want to talk that the quarterback battle. And touch on some stuff at camp. Before we do that, we are trying to get our Spotify and Apple Podcast numbers up. So go ahead over there, give that 5-star rating. Do that. Put in the comment if you have questions. Go for it. We still don't have super chats yet, so that'll be a good way to get questions, and we'll run through those as we do. So make sure you do that. Ron, we got any other house cleaning?
Nope, that's about it.
Okay, so I'll just start. I'll start with a general question. Thoughts from camp. There's a lot of news out there. Our boy Chris was out there. Terry, Dan, everybody was there. I felt like I should have hopped on a flight and just showed up because I feel like I'm again the only one that gets to miss out on camp. But
We're only a couple minutes from the Woody, right? So it shouldn't have been that long of a flight.
Which Woody is the question? So overall, any news that surprised you? Anything you heard?
I don't know if anything surprised me, but it's definitely reassuring to hear one thing that we all expected coming into the season. And our guy Dan summed it up. He was like, my biggest takeaway is defense, 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 and more defense. It looks like the Buckeyes finally have a defense out there that's really flying around. And I mean, we've seen the improvements under Jim Knowles in years past, but I feel like we are finally seeing the Death Star defense that Buckeyes have been waiting for, the combination of mad scientist schemer Jim Knowles and Ohio State talent. And it's even to the point where, I mean, I guess I should have brought a 40 on here to pour one out for the jack position, because we got confirmation that I don't think we're going to see the jack this year. Jim Knowles pretty much said that they don't feel like it's something that they're really going to incorporate into this defense, especially with the talent that they have. We are going to see more 3 linebacker sets. So I think we're going to find ways to see Sonny Styles, Cody Simon, and CJ Hicks all on the field. But overall, it just sounds like our defense is out there really flying around, and it looks like it's going to be the backbone of this team.
Yeah, I did hear that too. I mean, the defense, and even coming off last year, the defense was the talk of the town. Even last year, before going into that camp, the defense was dominating. And as it goes, the first few days of camp, the defense always starts in the lead. But this one, it feels a little bit of a different juice. I mean, obviously, you add maybe the best player in the country, Caleb Downs, just to already a loaded defense, bringing everybody back. But that wasn't the name I heard most on defense. So I'm gonna throw it to you of a guy you may know very well. Jermaine Matthews was the guy. He was the name. When I scoured, when I listened to everybody talk, Jermaine Matthews was the guy. You have been following him since high school. So Jermaine Matthews, he had a notable pick six. He was all over the place. He was the man. Let me know what is going on with Jermaine Matthews right now.
I mean, again, he's just showing out to be the standout that we always knew him to be, and we knew it coming out of high school. It's crazy that he got such a late offer, a late riser. He was scheduled to commit to Cincinnati 30 days before he camped at Ohio State and received his offer. As a true freshman, he's the number one rated coverage corner in America. I mean, for a while, he had more catches than people had catches on him last year. A young talent that's in a loaded room, and it makes you feel good about the depth. And I feel like Jermaine Matthews is just an example of something that we are seeing all around this team this year, outside of maybe running back, that this team is absolutely loaded. In years past, we've always had questions at certain positions of, man, who's going to be that guy? Who's going to step up and take control of that position? And we really need someone to do that. And this year, it's like we have so much depth on this team. It's like we got to get these guys on the field because they deserve to play. And I think Jermaine Matthews exemplifies that. And you're seeing it again this year as he continues to ball out in camp and build on his freshman campaign that was already spectacular. And I just think that's a guy that I think we may have to wait a little bit more to see him out there as, cornerback one. But, man, it just shows proof that the Buckeyes are in great hands for years to come, especially, I mean, you talk about that cornerback room. Another name that I heard a ton from camp with Aaron Scott out there already getting involved as a true freshman. So it's just proof that this cornerback room is in great hands, because it sounds like they're cross-training Jermaine Matthews at every position at corner, whether it be in the nickel or outside. So I think they're going to try to find ways to really get Jermaine on the field, because clearly he's earning those reps in practice.
Yeah, and that was actually to my next point for you in the chat. Also, make sure you like the video while we're in here, or retweet if you're on Twitter. Throw a like there too, wherever you at, so other people can see it. Jermaine Matthews seems like a guy, and this is for you and the chat. Is it time we stop talking about Jermaine Matthews as a guy who's just like, oh, he's adding depth, and talk about a guy who is maybe deserving of some equal reps in the quarterback room? I mean, you're talking about, we know Denzel Burke is back. Igbenogson was very solid, but Jermaine Matthews, you said he graded up as top for coverage. At times, I thought he was better than Iggy in coverage last year. Now, Iggy brings different things, physicality. He's up in the run game. He brings the juice, so we need him out there on the field. But is this a guy we got to stop talking about as like, oh, well, he's just another guy in the quarterback rotation? Or this is a guy who needs to play as many snaps as the other guys, when back in other days where we used to have three corners all getting equal reps?
Yeah, I feel like Iggy and Jermaine are almost like corners 2A and 2B. I mean, Iggy definitely brings a physicality that is definitely needed on this defense. You saw how involved he was in the run game last year. I believe he's the third leading tackler on the team last year. So that physicality is definitely something that we need out there. But Jermaine has definitely put himself in a position to demand playing time. And I feel like whether it's getting someone a breather, whether it's due to injury, which you would hate to see, but I feel like they're going to find ways to get Jermaine on the field. And especially with how long the season is, I know Jim Knowles talked about it last year at the beginning of camp about the need to make sure that everyone plays, because it's going to be a longer season, especially when you're chasing a college football playoff championship. So when you're playing later into the year, guys get injured, guys have dead legs. You want these guys to be fresh. You want them to be healthy. So I definitely think they're going to continue to learn on last year. I don't think we saw it as much as we maybe anticipated as far as rotation, but I definitely think with the depth and comfortability, especially, and someone talked about this last year in our chat, they always used to remind us when we would criticize things that we saw about the defense or the lack of rotation, people would always mention, it's only year two of Knowles. Like, they're still learning this game. Not everyone's out there perfect. You got new guys coming in still learning this game. You don't really have that excuse this year. Everybody's been here for the most part that has an opportunity to play. Jim Knowles has been here 3 years now. People are comfortable in the system. So I don't see any reason to limit the rotation this year, especially with all the depth that they have on that defense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, another guy that I heard about too is Calvin Simpson Hunt. I heard a lot about him coming out of camp, and I think that's another guy where they're at the point where they have to play now. Now Calvin says Hunt doesn't have the hype that Jermaine Matthews have, but clearly he's the guy. Like even now, like he's one of your coverage guys. But that is a dude that needs to play, needs to be developed. And like I said, with these first 5 games, I think they need a lot of reps, including with the young guys. And I think this cornerback room is at the perfect place you would want it as far as depth goes. But another spot I heard a lot about is the safety room. Since we're in the secondary, let me go there. I heard the young safeties is kind of showing out. I heard names like Jaden Bonsu. I heard Jalen McClain out there making plays. Talk to me about the safety. Does this safety room have more depth? Because we've heard about the top 2 guys. Obviously, we know Lathan Ransom at the top with Caleb Downs, maybe the best player in the country. But is this safety room better than maybe we've given it credit for, especially with the recruiting not being these high caliber guys coming in as we think? But in evaluation, maybe they were. So you let me know. What's up with the safety room?
It sounds like we've been stargazing because half the fan base was ready to run Perry Eliano out the building because of recruiting, and now the standouts on defense happen to be the safeties no one allegedly wanted when they were killing Perry last year for missing on his cousin. It's crazy how that works out, man. Perry Eliano, this awful recruiter, this awful coach, but now we have this great safety depth. That's just crazy how that works. Your thoughts there, Q, on the idea that Ohio State has struggled at safety recruiting in years past, but now all of a sudden it seems to be a position of strength, especially when you hear these reports about the safeties out there thumping in practice to the point where Jim Knowles is threatening to throw people out of practice because they can't not take their teammates' heads off.
I'm of the mind where I think both things can be true. I do believe Ohio State had their top targets maybe set out and they didn't get all of the guys they wanted. But as far as the safeties that we have, they weren't guys we necessarily waited a long time to take. I mean, Jalen McClain was in there early, I remember, and I know Bonsu, we got on him pretty early, and he made it all the way through. So maybe they didn't get some of the more, I guess, stargazing top prospects, but I think they had a good evaluation on these guys that brought them in, and it is really good to hear. So Perry didn't leave us with the cupboard completely bare, and that's not even mentioning Malik Hartford, who was a guy was a priority that we had to have, who's been a little banged up. But it does sound like these guys can play, and I think where the safety recruiting is now, it just makes it to where in a couple years we may look at this room like we look at the cornerback room of like, okay, we got guys that can play, we got guys coming up. So definitely it's a good look, and I am thoroughly impressed, and I'm enjoyed to be impressed by where the safety room is right now.
Absolutely. It's excited to see. And then, I mean, all it is fingers crossed that Matt G can continue this success that he's had on the recruiting trail and continue to develop this room, because it seems to have a loaded room with plenty of talent that's playing well. So it's exciting to see him have the room in that type of place. And then you see the recruiting success that we've had this past cycle. So it's exciting to see the, I guess, transformation of the safety room, but how much of a transformation has it been? Because these are the same guys that were there.
Yeah, and I will give a shout out to Lorenzo Styles as well. We did hear his name, and hopefully he gets back soon and gets healthy. Another giant standout, and switching over to the offensive side of the ball, because this guy had so much buzz coming out of camp. We might hop around a little bit, and if somebody stood out to you, go ahead and put in the chat and let us know, and we'll talk about them as well. Brandon Ennis. So I asked you last week, I said, okay, Ryan Day named 3 guys. Brandon Ennis was none of those 3 guys. So was he in the first half of like, oh, he's going to play, or was he falling behind a little bit? And you said, no, he's in those top billing of guys. Well, I'm here to give you your roses. Brandon Ennis was the guy everyone talked about. They said he was dynamic. He was shifty. He brought the juice. He really stood out among the receivers. So talk to me about what you heard about Brandon Ennis.
I talked to my guy, Terry, and he just talked about how explosive Brandon Ennis is, especially and dynamic he is with the ball in his hand. And I said to Terry, I said, when you watch his film in high school, it doesn't look like you could tag him in a phone booth. Like, he is that dynamic. And Terry was like, that's the perfect way to describe it. He was making guys miss left and right. And to see a guy who got here a little late, he didn't early enroll, the only 5-star to sign in his class in the Big Ten, to know that he's on a roster that includes Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, an absolutely loaded room that I feel like it sometimes gets forgotten, because We didn't see him as involved in much, but then when you look at the statistics, 1 catch, 55 yards, he did what he did with his one opportunity. I saw a clip from the social team with Carnell Tate about a week or so ago, and he was talking about having 1 touchdown last year. Everybody talks about how few touches Brandon Innes got, but he had the same amount of touchdowns as Carnell Tate. I feel like that shows how dynamic and explosive that he can be, and it's exciting to see that he's going to be in that rotation this year. He's definitely within the 4 deep, and I feel like we're going to get to see a lot of SFE celebrations this year.
Yeah, as we were talking with Anand on Friday, I thought Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate were really the two guys who needed to be in this lineup. They needed to play because we talked about it last year. Zone 6 struggled at times with separation. They struggled with times with just making it easy for the quarterback to throw because we knew Kyle was not going to necessarily be on time and on target all the time. And I think Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate come in with this route running kind of background where we know they're going to be guys who can be dynamic in short spaces, create separation, good route running, and get open for whichever quarterback starts for our team. So I thought that is great to hear one about Brandon Ennis coming up and just the wide receivers overall. I'm buzzed with them. I want to talk about a couple more guys here that we talked about just a couple shows ago. So the Ohio State media team said, oh, Bryson Rogers, Jaden Ballard, Ryan Day called them out. Okay, well, let me give you some clips of Bryson Rogers and Jaden Ballard. So they both had big time plays. Perceived wide receiver 4 and 5, or 5 and 6. So talk to me about what you see for Bryson Rogers and Jaden Ballard.
I feel like those are two guys that Ryan Day challenged to step up because you see how deep this wide receiver room is. Jaden Ballard's been here for 4 years now, and you've seen a freshman, sophomores, a lot of different people in different classes find a way to pass him, but the Buckeyes still haven't given up on that explosive speed. It's take the top off the defense type of speed, and I feel like the Buckeyes want to find a way to incorporate him, and they're giving him every opportunity to do that, and I feel like it just might be a matter of this room is just so talented that they don't find a way to get him on the field. But knowing, again, we talk about the depth. In years past, if I told you that one of the wide receivers was going down and XJ's the next one in, you know what I mean? We're seeing Reed Stocksdale that on the field. Like, we are seeing guys that were former walk-ons getting playing time, but I think those days are long gone. I feel like with Bryson Rogers and oh my God, Jaden Ballard, both of them, both being in this room for multiple years now. Jaden at 4, Bryson at 2, and I think Bryson's also going to be a huge addition to this room as far as coming back. We saw him enter the transfer portal this offseason. We knew how loaded that room is, and then we also saw the departure of Noah Rogers. So to be able to get Bryson back in that loaded 2023 wide receiver class, I feel like, again, this wide receiver room is just an embarrassment of riches, and you like to see that these guys are still developing and Ryan Day is still challenging them to make them a part of this rotation, because it sounds like they're trying to give these wide receivers ever opportunity to be a part of a deeper rotation than we've seen in years past. And again, I can't stress this enough. If the Buckeyes truly have national championship aspirations with a longer playoff, hopefully playing in the Big Ten championship game this year, the Buckeyes have a long season ahead of them, and I feel like a lot of people are going to need to play to keep this team healthy enough and upright enough to be able to compete in a national championship.
Yeah, and another guy I want to throw in there that I heard about too is Kojo Antwi. I already had a good practice as well. No big highlights from the media team, so they're hiding the film, but but I did hear he was making passes. Actually, I heard something that I hadn't heard before, and we all talked about JJ over the summer clocking in at 23.1 miles an hour, I think it was. I actually heard from one of the beat members that Kojo actually had clocked in faster the day before than Jeremiah's top speed, which I have not heard that in 3 years of
Gunner.
So I haven't heard it, but just I'll throw that note in there, because if he's moving like that yet again, you got to do something. Go catch a punt.
Don't catch a punt, bro. Go get on the outside on punt, man. We need gunners. Him and Lorenzo Styles, best gunners in America, man.
So hopefully we continue to hear the buzz from the wide receivers. So we'll peel back, and like I said, we'll jump around a little bit, but make sure you like that video. Talk about it in chat. Let me know what you seen at practice. Of course, Dan, I got you. And everybody ignore Gmo in the chat. I know he's in there causing havoc.
Yeah, he can't even spell.
But the chat
And
rate
they're
is up.
correcting people
So
spelling incorrectly.
the chat rate is up. So we appreciate you, Gmo. Keep chatting away. Want to appeal to the quarterbacks a bit. So there was a lot of notes talking about the quarterbacks, a lot of stuff. So first of all, what I heard, and I'll go preface this, I heard that practice, the open practice had a lot of run action. So it wasn't just going in there and airing it out. Everybody didn't get the opportunity to go, 7v7, 2-minute drill. I'm just airing it out and see what we could do. But let's start here. So Will Howard, heard he took a majority of the first team reps, or at least maybe a little majority. I heard it split pretty evenly, but I heard he's working through consistency. But a lot of people came out and said he's starting to have his best practices. He's starting to pick it up a little bit. What do you think is going on with Will Howard, and did you hear the same?
It seems like he's done everything that the coaching staff has asked him to do in the offseason, as far as getting more comfortable with the playbook and the offense, as far as getting more zip on his pass. I feel like every person that's been at practice said there's been more zip on the ball. When Will Howard is throwing the ball, he looks more comfortable around the team. It seems like the team is rallying behind him, and that's what you want to see, improvement from the spring. I mean, everybody knows the experience that Will Howard brought in, former Big 12 champion. He brings a level of running to this offense. You heard about the 85-yard run that he was able to break off in practice. To know that we have a 6'5", 6'4" quarterback that's 240 pounds that's running away from defenses. Most of the reports are saying that his deep ball is still leaving a bit to be desired. But when you have guys like Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, they're going to save the quarterback on a lot of plays. You keep hearing about these spectacular catches on balls that are behind people or above them. You have that wiggle room, and that's something that Will Howard didn't have at Kansas State. So to see that he's developing, he's doing the things that the coach asked him to do, and that the receivers are making plays for him, all indications point that we should see an improved Will Howard from Kansas State. And everybody said coming into this offseason, that's more than enough improvement from what we saw from Kyle last year to get it done, especially with the way this team wants to play this year, with hard-nosed defense and an offense that can run the ball. So, I mean, you hear the great reports about Devin Brown's deep ball and his improved accuracy and him continuing to stick it out and fight for the position. But it seems like it's Will Howard's job to lose. And right now, all indications seem that Will Howard has improved significantly from spring camp. So it's exciting to hear these things. And it sounds like, again, this quarterback room is just like almost every other position on the roster. There's depth behind them. I mean, if you listen to some Buckeye media outlets, they'll tell you Julian Sayin's the backup quarterback. So, I mean, it sounds like we have all the depth in the world.
Yeah, and actually, I think you peeked ahead in the show notes a little bit. Did talk about Devin Brown and hear about how great he is throwing the deep ball. He's the strongest arm on the team, but he's been a little inconsistent as well. So I wanted to ask this question for you in the chat. For this team, it seems like we know the weapons we have at receiver. I think the deep ball is something we didn't have last year. Enough with Kyle. And maybe the key to open up the offense, but it seems like you're either riding with the deep ball and the ability maybe to do that with Devin Brown, or you're riding with all the things Will Howard gives you with the consistency, maybe more things intermediate to do for you, because we ran the stats the other day and we realized like Will Howard is not a great deep ball thrower as far as returning quarterbacks come. So for you, if you stepped into the head coach of the day and you're like, okay, I got to make a decision for this team just based off what we know right now, would you be more prone to ride with the consistency of Will Howard and maybe the shorter intermediate things, or maybe throw the risk reward with Devin Brown in the deep ball? Where would you go for that?
I mean,
that's where
I'm going with the deep ball. I'm like, let's win Jeremiah Smith the Heisman as a freshman. Like, you know how I am. But I mean, it's Chip Kelly's offense, not Ron James' offense. I mean, clearly they feel like Will Howard gives an element to this offense that they're looking for. I mean, you've heard them. I mean, I've heard that Devin Brown has looked quick in the RPO plays and the design quarterback runs. Will Howard has looked the part as well. But I mean, when you add together all the factors between the improvements that we've seen, the experience that he has at Kansas State, the height, the weight, the injury issue, or the injury history, it seems like it's his job to lose. I mean, he seems to fit exactly what they're looking to do. I mean, we talked to Anand, and he said a lot of the passing that they were working on was short game. He believes that we have a lot of wide receivers that once they get the ball in their hands, they can do the rest. So this offense might not have to look like years past, and that's completely fine with me as long as it's working.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think it's gonna be like that for the most of the season. Where if you just give these guys the ball, we'll be fine. And we're gonna score points. When you run into like talent, I think that's where you need a little bit of separator. But that doesn't mean Will Howard by the end of the season won't be throwing the deep ball well when you go into the playoffs and things like that. Or it doesn't mean Devin Brown won't throw the deep ball well early in the season and get to those intermediate things. So it still is a battle. But I'm with you. I feel like this is Will Howard's job to lose. It's always felt that way. And we talked about that again on Friday. If you didn't check out that episode, make sure you go back. We had Anand in here. He told us what he saw at practice and kind of his predictions for the team in the future. But it has felt that way, and it's been weird because it's like a lot of this has been like off the field, and he's taking the job. So, but it is what it is at this point. We got to roll with it. Another guy I want to talk about is Julian Sayin. A lot of people said he does not look like a freshman. He has been up and down, which you expect, but my question for you is this, and in chat: will Julian Sayin actually get some meaningful reps this season? I don't mean reps when the game's on the line or anything like that, but we saw CJ Stroud come in here and not throw a pass his first year that he was playing. We seen guys not get reps. So do you think he will actually get some playing time where he can, work and develop, and we don't have an end of the season Lincoln Kyle holes where he's like, oh shit, I haven't played all season. You gonna throw me in the middle of a game? So what do you think? Do you think Julius Sanders is going to get some burn this season?
No, I don't. I really don't. I feel like we're gonna see Devin Brown as the backup quarterback for the majority of the year, and I mean CJ Stroud was just fine with only with never throwing a pass. I mean Minnesota was a little shaky, but at the same time he looks to be doing fine as far as his development in the NFL. So if Julian Sayin doesn't get the opportunity to be the backup quarterback this year, or he doesn't see meaningful reps, I don't think it's that big of a deal because I feel like this seems to be an all-in type of season. And while it would be beneficial for Julian to get reps because he's likely the quarterback of the future here, at the same time, I feel like they're narrow focused on winning a national championship this year. And I feel like when it comes to winning a national championship, having Devin Brown prepared as your backup quarterback gives you the best opportunity to achieve the goals that you set out at the beginning of the season to beat the team up north, to win the Big Ten championship, and to win a national championship. Is Devin Brown going to be the quarterback of the future here, barring any injury? It seems like no. But at the same time, it still feels like anyone that's watched practice outside of one media outlet will tell you that Devin Brown has looked like the second best quarterback out there, and there's a significant gap between them. So I would want our backup quarterback that gives us the best chance to win if anything were to happen to our starter to be prepared. And I don't see an opportunity for us to be playing 3 and 4 quarterbacks this season when we've had guys like CJ Stroud barely touch the field when they were sitting behind Justin Fields.
Yeah, I'm afraid to agree with you, but I wouldn't put it past Ryan Day to continue to be Ryan Day. I think the way with the hype of Julian saying, maybe, and I understand we've hyped every quarterback to come through here. We've got all the stars. It's like Hollywood in here. 5-star this way, a star that way. Like I get it. I just understand with the early hype of Julian saying, I feel like it would be a disservice to him, a disservice to Air, disservice to Lincoln to not find some kind of way to get these guys to throw in a live game. I'm not saying, they're gonna get significant snaps, but again,
you heard it here first. Q wants a new quarterback every quarter against Akron.
and go to overtime just so we get the 5th one in.
So you want a tie game against Akron so Nolan win it in overtime?
Hey, if they're playing anything like NCAA 25, you might go to overtime against Akron. I'm just saying. But I think it's just a disservice to these guys not to give them some film. like when I talked about it, and I didn't get to weigh in it too much because we had three of us talking on Friday. But I think that's just one of the things where if I look at Kirby as a coach and how he runs through his depth and how he prepared guys for the future, that's something Ryan Day can take into his coaching hat. So it's something I would like to see, but I don't know if it's gonna happen.
Someone commented on Friday's episode. They said, "Man, you could see 5 a.m. all over Q's face listening to us talk on Friday." They're like, "Q looks like he's struggling to keep his eyes open over there."
Y'all do not even understand. But I'm here.
We were both off work on Friday. Q thought we were going to wrap up the show and he'd be able to go back to sleep. I think we had, a 2.5 hour post-production meeting.
Doubled the show. I was like, oh, God.
We were online till like noon.
I'm sleeping till 4. Oh, man. But yeah, chat, weigh in. Let me know. They were going to get some significant reps. Another place I wanted. Well, hold on. Let me pause it here. It's a good time to sorry, my alarm's going.
I thought you had to remind yourself for the show to tell people something.
Yeah, that was my wake up for the show alarm. No, this is a good time to remind you. Go ahead and like that video. There's 185 people watching. If you're on Twitter, hit that like and retweet. And like I said before, I know Mike was asking earlier. We don't have super chats yet, but we are trying to get the podcast numbers up. So hit Apple Podcasts, hit Spotify, leave a review. Leave your questions there. We will get to them. I'll make sure they're up this week, and we'll.
That's an interesting way to phrase it. We don't have super chats yet. We're beefing with YouTube, and we're currently suspended, so we don't.
You gonna say that? You gonna piss them off? We're never gonna have super chats. Somebody's watching right now.
Maybe they'll actually call me and say something about it. We can get this thing worked out.
The dude was over there with the light switch. Like, they've been good for a few weeks. Nope, he said something.
No respect from that Ron James fella.
So we've been beefing with him for a little bit, but we're trying to get super chats back. But please hit those podcast networks. It's usually up there right after the show. So give those.
If you submit a 5-star review with a question, we will be sure to answer it here on the pod. And if we miss it, let us know in the chat and we will make sure that we get to it.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. All right. The next thing we'll talk about is I heard this offensive line is looking pretty good. And that's kind of the next way I want to go. So preferences last season, in case you forgot, going in from spring ball into camp, it felt like we couldn't practice because the offensive line was getting dominated so badly. It sounds like they have developed. You bring in Seth McLaughlin at center. Obviously, the left side of the line was good with Josh Simmons and Donovan Jackson, who really should be up for awards this postseason. They should really be playing well. It sounds, and I don't know if this is true, but I heard from Birdie that maybe we got a Tegra sighting at right guard. It sounds like Carson Hinsman was out for the first practice. We heard Ryan Day mention Tegra. Maybe the recruiting rankings have finally caught up with the player. And then we know it's going to be Josh Fryer at right tackle. He's not losing that job. I don't even care. I don't even care if DeJuan Jones walks back in the door. He ain't losing it. All right. So we're there. What have you heard from this offensive line? And are you excited? Because that was the one thing I was hoping to hear.
It sounds like while Justin Fry took a break from recruiting this cycle, he's been focusing all his time on developing this offensive line. We've talked about the misses at O-line, and it seems like it's not going to get much better here in recruiting. But everybody's going to forget about that when this offensive line goes out there and starts mauling people. And I will be the first one to apologize to Josh Fryer if he comes out there and has completely transformed his body and he looks like a different person. If Carson Hinsman's able to secure that right guard position or Tegra Shabola, I would love to eat crow on this topic. I would love for this offensive line to show us what we saw in the Michigan game. I mean, let Cam and Mike tell you, you go back and rewatch that game. Our offensive line isn't getting pushed around. I mean, obviously on the last play when Kyle got sacked, that's one play. If you have a quarterback that can move, maybe that doesn't happen. I feel like this offensive line is ready to take a step, and that's just another notch in the belt for Justin Fry, at least as far as saying, hey, look how much this line has gotten better since I got here, even without the recruits. So, and you have to applaud them for the recruits. I mean, I know we don't like to give much credit for landing Ohio kids around here, but any person that I talked to that was at practice, they had to slip in. The Armstrong kids, a problem. So the Armstrong twins out there looking like freaks of nature out on the field as well. So again, just speaking to the depth of this team. I don't think those guys are quite ready to play yet, but they seem like they are going to be players here in the future. And you hit on it. In years past, in fall camp, in spring camp, we've heard stories about barely able to even rep with the twos because we don't have the depth at the offensive line and the defensive line is just running through them. And we haven't heard any of those reports this year. And from all indications, it seems like this offensive line has taken a step.
Yeah, it does. So a couple things. I also heard Josh Simmons, who we got his name settled now.
Jimmy Simons.
Josh Simmons is looking like a first round prospect from all reports, and we've heard a lot of hype coming out of him. Truly, if Justin Fry can bring this guy in from was it San Diego State?
Mm-hmm.
Came from San Diego. Okay, so you really bring a guy and really that didn't really play well at San Diego State and turn him into a first rounder. I think it almost would be insane that he can't. He might have to steal that Michigan line on like visits and be like, "Look, those who stay will be champions. Just please stay," because it sounds like the guys that he has here, he really develops them, and at some point that has to sell. So on the field, he's got to keep doing what he's doing. Heard that. And also Luke Montgomery, I did hear he was repping at center a little bit. There was a lot of talk in his recruitment about center may be his position. We were so desperate for a tackle that we're like, no, he's highly recruited. He's playing tackle.
He's a 6'2" tackle, yeah. I promise.
5'11" tackle, get him out there. But it sounds like maybe that might be a move or something we'll continue to watch. But good notes from the offensive line. And then as we started with the show, my last note was the defense has been elite. But Ron, I have a question for you, right? So Jim Knowles, heard his press conference. We talked about him a little bit before. And I just remember him saying, and this really stuck with me. He was talking about Sonny Styles. And he was like, oh, Sonny Styles has improved. He's done this. He's battling for CJ Hicks with playing time. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, hold up. Time out. Sonny Styles, to me, is one of the 5 best players on the team. And he probably was last year. Why, Rocky, tell me, is Sonny Styles even battling for playing time? Just like that. That's my last thing. Why is he battling for playing time? If anybody on this defense, besides Denzel Burke, and Jordan Hancock, and Caleb Downs, should be battling for playing time, it should not be Sonny Styles for me. But can you answer that for me? That's my last question.
Yeah, honestly, it's a pretty simple explanation. He changed positions. He grew out of the position that he used to play, and the position that he used to play, Caleb Downs now plays. So, I mean, not necessarily the same exact position, but we bring in a safety. Lathan Ransom returns. There's not really a spot for Sonny in that safety room, and he's continuing to develop physically that he doesn't necessarily fit that room. You have a guy like Cody Simon who's experienced, who's also a top recruit, a freak of nature. You've seen the athletic testing. You know the trust that Jim Knowles has in him because it's the only linebacker he would play outside of Tommy and Steele last year. So you obviously have Cody Simon there. And then CJ Hicks, the 5-star that we've been screaming about on the show for 3 years, is the only person that could potentially keep Sonny off the field. So I feel like, again, it just speaks to the depth and the talent that Ohio State has. And they're doing things that they haven't done in years past where they're just bringing in more talent. I feel like in years past, Ryan Day might have said no to a Caleb Downs. And it sounds ridiculous, but
yeah,
I mean, we had.
He might have.
You saw the corners that we had when we said no to Eli Ricks, so I wouldn't rule anything out. So this cutthroat approach to roster construction, as far as continuing to low talent, stack talent, and playing the best player, is how you result in a situation where we're talking about Sonny Styles, potentially one of the top players on the team. I'm not going to say not starting. He's absolutely going to start. It's going to be CJ. It feels like it's going to be CJ. That's the odd man out at this point. But Jim Knowles also mentioned that we're going to see 3 linebacker packages. So I feel like those are going to be ways that we get CJ on the field. I feel like they're going to at least get those reps to make sure those other guys, as far as Sonny and Cody, are healthy. We've had linebackers injured the past 2 seasons. So I think Jim Knowles is going to try to focus on a rotation that allows Sonny to stay healthy and also allows CJ to get his time on the field this year.
Yeah, and I hope there's a good rotation. I heard good things about Arvell Reese as well coming out.
Absolutely.
So I did hear good notes about him playing well, and we know he's a physical freak as well. Just my general point of Sonny Styles is I think he is the one dude on this defense that by the time we get into midseason, playing a true position and being utilized can give Caleb Downs a run for his money. I think he's the one prospect going here where he's a guy where it's like, oh, well, is it Caleb Downs or is it Sonny Styles? Because they're both showing out on this defense. So that's the hype train I'm rolling with. But that was my last question for you. So do you have anything more to touch on for camp?
No, nothing from camp, but we got to talk about them cheaters up north, Q. The notice of allegations, leaks with ESPN yesterday. I just want to get your general thoughts because I had a blast in my bookmarks yesterday on Twitter, just looking at all the people asking for the hammer. Nothing's gonna happen. Oh, you guys are crying. We didn't cheat. All of these narratives from the team up north about how they didn't cheat. That wasn't Connor Stallions. He's bald. How could that be Connor Stallions? Look, that guy has hair. Apparently, they haven't heard of wigs in Michigan. I don't know, Q. What are your thoughts on this? It feels like confirmation that we haven't been crazy this whole time. And it sounds like the NCAA is none too pleased with the University of Michigan.
The fact that he'd go grab a wig is just sounds absolutely crazy. Just for idiot, it's just so hilarious. It's like a TV show,
bro. When I pop out on this show with a wig, I better not hear anybody from the Michigan fan base talking about he's bald. Like that's someone different.
Nah. Man, I'm just saying, like we knew this was coming, man. This is the one thing this is the one case I maybe have ever heard of really in life with this much evidence and people being like, nah, we're good. Usually
OJ
it's like, nah, we're good. You gotta show us the evidence, whatever. And then once evidence starts to come out, it just gets a little quieter, like, nah, we'll be fine. Like what? But people have been loud about no, nothing is going to happen. I don't care what you have in 4K. Go ahead.
It's crazy. I saw someone say yesterday, well, you just can't ever take this feeling from us, and posted the natty. And it was like, bro, two years ago, you guys were Michigan men in Walmart khakis talking about morals and emission standards. Now you're talking about you can't take this feeling from me after you cheated for a national championship. Yeah. The hypocrisy is kind of crazy.
Man, I can't wait for this Netflix. I really hope they went crazy on this because that's gonna be my favorite watch of the year. It's gonna be number one. It's gonna be all over it. You want to see my movie channel? It's gonna be all over that if this Netflix not really hits like that. Because I can't wait for that. It's been a long time coming. We've had to wait for it. We know the NCAA moves slow, but it looks like we now have confirmation. Something's coming, and now it's time to quiet down a little bit and let's see what the NCAA does for us.
I want to run one potential headline past you before we get out of here.
Okay.
Michigan University names Tony Alford interim head coach due to suspension of Sherrone Moore. Could we see former running backs coach Tony Alford become the interim head coach of Michigan because he's the only one that they know wasn't cheating because he was busy at Ohio State getting his ass kicked by the cheaters?
Not only that, Tony Alford named offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, safeties coach, defense line coach. He's gonna be the only one left. That would be a crazy headline. But again, we know Tony Alford's one. Maybe this was his plan all along. We just know Tony Alford wanted to be a head coach for a while. He couldn't get us in at Colorado State. They wouldn't give him the interview because he never coordinated. So maybe he was like, oh yeah, I'm in 4K right now. I know if I go there, everybody else is out. So it's my job. I'm just thinking that far ahead. And if he did, props to him.
So maybe Tony Alford actually had a leak inside of ESPN and knew this was coming this whole time. And it's all been a long play. And we all owe him an apology for leaving because it was actually to become the head coach at the team up north and not a lateral move to be the running backs coach.
I'm moving up. Y'all just don't know it yet.
Yeah. But that's all I had for today, man. It's great to be back 5 days a week here for the Buckeye Roast every day at 8 a.m. We've actually made it on time every day, which is shocking. We're going to keep that now this season. But yeah, man, it's super exciting. We have news coming from the NCAA. We have news coming out of fall camp. Open practices are close, and now we are at the mercy of the narratives that they try to spin coming out of the Woody. So it is speculation season for the next couple of weeks, but Buckeye football is right around the corner, and the pads are on. Q, anything before we get out of here?
No, just want to give a shout out to the Buckeye fan base. You guys were up and active on Twitter. I did not get to go to practice, but a lot of clips, a lot of pictures, and I was able to pull stuff for the show. So just want to say thank you to y'all because the show is a lot of your hard work, and I I got to read and study.
Absolutely. Shout out to our guy Dan. Shout out to our guy Terry. Shout out to everybody that was at practice that shared practice reports with us in the Discord or reached out to us or gave us a call. We appreciate all of you. We couldn't do it without you guys. Appreciate you guys sharing the information and being so transparent and venturing out there for practice. I know some of you guys traveled for those events. So shout out to all you guys that made this happen. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Q, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, everybody except Chris Drew because we don't give Chris Drew no respect on this show.
Oh, Poch says, "Bring on Chris Drew, fellas." Chris Drew was supposed to be on the show yesterday, that didn't happen. So
everybody except Little
yell
Drew.
at Chris in the Menace today for not showing up. If you miss Chris Drew.
I'm not hard to find. If you want to find me, I'm City Boy Quitting on Twitter. I'll be up there, Flying Johnson on Instagram and TikTok. And if you're into movies, minor league films here on YouTube, quick search away. Come catch me over there, Ron.
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter at 2_TEES. That's 2 T's. You can find me here weekdays at 8 a.m. with my guy Q. And then you can find us Sundays for the Buckeye Roast with our guys Mike and Cam. We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're watching on Twitter, make sure you drop a follow, retweet, throw a like on it, like the video, comment, subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate all the support. Can't wait to keep doing it this year. Every morning at 8 a.m. here for the Buckeye Roast. Go Bucks and OH.
Ayo.